Okay, I think we're there. Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of the Daily Sib. Really excited, as always, to have bloggers and influencers on because it's my background and my passion. So it's going to be a really nice chat. And today we've got Pippa Stacey. So welcome, Pippa.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Well, where are you based in the country?
So I usually live in York, but at the minute with everything that's going on, I'm back home with my parents in Sheffield. So I'm Yorkshire lass through and through, but not in my usual environment at the minute.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's been, lots of people have changed things for lots of different reasons around the COVID-19. So, I mean, yeah, it's we'll maybe we'll start at the beginning. We'll build up to what you're up to now once we've heard a bit more about you. So, yeah, as always, if you just kick us off with a bit of a bio intro, that'd be really helpful for the viewers.
Yep, so my name is Pippa Stacey. In a nutshell, I'm a writer and a blogger. I have a blog called Life of Pippa, which is basically all about independent living with a problematic chronic illness. This is a very timely kind of situation because this week is ME Awareness Week and my condition is ME. As anyone with the condition will know, it's the gift that keeps on giving. All sorts of fun symptoms. But yeah, I work in the charity sector. I've been writing books recently. Writing is the thing I love to do, and I'm very grateful for the platform that blogging and doing the whole social media thing gives me as well. So that's I suppose that's me in a nutshell, really.
That's really, really good framing of what you're up to. And yeah, so many different things I'm excited to chat to you about, really. So, I mean, let's start with the health side and the ME first. I mean, I've got a couple of close people in my family that have it, and I know, it's very misunderstood by society, by the mainstream public. I think, with any sort of health condition, not everyone understands it, and how can they if they've not experienced it? But I think there's a little bit more awareness getting out sort of as time goes on. But when did you start to have what has then later been diagnosed as ME? When did it have its onset?
So with me, I kind of started with the symptoms mildly when I was about 15, 16 years old, which scarily was 10 years ago now.
Really? Oh, yeah, but very youthful complexion.
I try my best. But because I only had the symptoms mildly, and because there's so much miseducation around the condition, I wasn't diagnosed until about 4 years later. So I wasn't diagnosed until the age of 19, and that was only after a significant relapse in my health. That was what it kind of took to get the specialist referral and the diagnosis.
Sure.
So I had probably 2 or 3 years where my health was at its worst. Conveniently, that's while I was going through uni. So such fun.
What were you studying at uni?
I was at the Uni of York doing psychology and education. Graduated in 2016. Unfortunately, in the last few years, things are still obviously tough on a day-to-day basis, but my health is much better than it was then. I feel like things are slightly less unpredictable. I feel like I have a bit more control over it now, and my quality of life is generally so much better, which I'm incredibly grateful for.
Yeah, well, I'd imagine there's almost a snowball that, the actual health is getting worse, like you say, around that sort of 15 to 19 years old stage. But then also you don't know what it is and what's going on. And so the worry and the stress and the lack of control must sort of enhance and compound it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was the whole the thing with the symptoms being invisible makes it a lot more difficult to identify. The fact that there's no kind of diagnostic blood test at the minute, although there is research being done in that area now, which is great. I think a lot of the things that young people face when they first go to the GP, they do face kind of disbelief or people kind of trivializing what they're going through. So I remember something for me was that my symptoms were being attributed things like, oh, she's probably just stressed over her GCSEs, probably just needs to do a little bit of this, a little bit of this, it'll be fine. 4 years later, I went back and I was like, this is not fine. And that's not an uncommon experience by any means. It's something that a lot of people go through. But like you say, I do think things are slowly improving. There's a lot further to go, but I do feel that things are slowly improving.
Yeah, I mean, that's been my feeling of the narrative as a wheelchair user, that, if you look at decades ago, it was some pretty barbaric kind of things going on, like, certainly 100 years ago around the medical model, like cure. But gradually it's been about, well, how do we make society more accessible? And with wheelchairs, there's that more visibility. I can't really get away from the fact I'm sat in the chair all day. So it's a very visible disability. And then some of the solutions are a bit ramps and lifts. But in the end, it's more about attitudes and policies and just society being more aware. And it takes time. But I think, as you say, it gets a bit better every year or every decade at least. So, but yeah, I don't know, in terms of, like, you say you love writing, and obviously blogging has been a thing that never existed 20 years ago as well. So, like, when I presume you've always enjoyed writing sort of at school in general, but when did you get into blogging, and was it because of having ME, or was that two separate things in the beginning?
To think actually earlier of the timeline and how it actually all came, because it all happened so organically. But right back in the beginning, when I was first kind of getting ill with ME, I didn't know a lot about it. I couldn't find a lot of information out there. So I turned to social media to try and find a community of other people who I could kind of relate to, who understood what I was going through.
Yeah.
So that was things like Twitter and Instagram, and that really naturally led to me kind of starting to document my own experiences.
So in the beginning, it was kind of like you had questions, and social media and bloggers had experiences that provided you with answers, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Especially, that's interesting.
And sometimes, I'm sure you can relate to this as well, sometimes the most helpful information doesn't always come from medical professionals. It comes from other people with lived experiences of what you're going through.
Totally, yeah.
So it was kind of through finding that community and then kind of finding my feet within that community myself. I then became one of the people who was actually sharing my experience. And I kind of did it on Twitter and Instagram and social media for a good few years before I branched out into blogging. But as soon as I branched out into blogging, I was like, oh my goodness, this is it. This is exactly where I'm meant to be. I just loved it straight away.
So you sort of tapped into the writing that you've always enjoyed. Then in doing the blogging, the two sort of became one in a way.
Definitely. And at first, I still feel this now. I thought, well, what could anybody possibly gain from this? Like, I'm just any other person. Why on earth would people want to read this? But then I remember, like, I was in that exact same position. The things people were putting out there were so helpful. And the fact that I'm now in that position, and the fact that on the one hand, I enjoy doing it so much, but on the other hand, the fact that people can benefit from it, it's just amazing. I really do love it.
Yeah, and I think when you look at media, so when there still is TV, radio, and print, but when that was the main thing, there was always a sort of, if you were on the TV, you were in front of millions of people, and that was the sort of norm. If you're in the media, it is a lot of people. And I think what gradually people are getting their head around is that to be worthwhile, it doesn't have to be millions of followers. Like, I mean, a bit like you, I started blogging because I was giving talks to kids with SMA, which is a disability I've got. And I thought I so loved being a role model and passing on solutions and just general positivity. But, 5 or 10 people in a room, I thought I can reach more by using the internet. But like in the beginning, it was not many people reading it, but just one message that someone had benefited is worth it. It doesn't have to be this crazy number of followers, but obviously there is still that potential path of being a career and earning some money in an appropriate and authentic way. But even then, it's still not in the millions. You can be a speaker or a consultant and things off of blogging that, with a few thousand followers. So I think it's quite important just for the viewers to have that myth dispelled, really, that it's not about crazy numbers of following, but of course you want it to have impact for the right people in the right numbers as well.
That's the thing I always say to people when they say, what's like your advice? Like how did you do it? You just have to kind of think about what's unique about your own experience and what you can offer, what you can share with people. And the fact that you have that unique insight, that's the power. It's not about, like you say, how many followers you have or how many people you're reaching. It's about your voice and what we can learn from it.
Absolutely.
From it, I would say.
Yeah, and people have a sense of, am I good enough. And you were saying sort of, that why would people want to read it and that, but everyone has a unique experience. So it's like, yes, there might be other bloggers in chronic illness or, more sort of wheelchair use on my side, but those other bloggers haven't had the same experience in the past and doing the same things now, the same interests, the same likes. So there's always a unique perspective, even if there are other bloggers of that broad topic.
Definitely. It's like, I mean, it goes, I was listening to your talk with Chris yesterday, and like you were saying, like disability blogging, influencers aren't necessarily talking only about disability. Like you can branch out into many other areas, and that's exactly what really, it's like not solely about my experience of chronic illness, but the fact that I love things like theatre and books, and like I get to talk about all those, and then they start to, the pathways start to cross. Like one of my interests is campaigning for accessible and inclusive theatre, and that's led to some really amazing opportunities. So it's like, it's funny how it all crosses over, and it's very much about you as an individual. I think that's the power. People follow you and your story, and they get to know you. That's what I love, and that's what I love following about other people as well.
So on the content creation side, obviously you've already said it was about experiences and your thoughts and perspectives, which I think is the only way really to do blogging and influencer type work, or not work, but generally any sort of hobby as well. It's just the right way to do it. But how did you approach it? I mean, how did you look for ideas, or like take your experiences but turn them into more cohesive articles? It'd be good just to share some of the way you went about that area.
It might not be the most helpful advice for other people, but the thing that I always found,
it's your experience. That's the main thing.
Well, with again, Emmy, the gift that keeps on giving, I spend a lot of time in bed resting, and I always find that inconveniently the best ideas come to me when I'm supposed to not be thinking and resting.
So true.
And like once they're in your head, you can't get them out of your head. You can't move on till like you've done something about them. So I have a list of notes on my phone full of ideas, and whenever something just pops into my head, I just make a note of it, and then when I feel up to it, I'll pluck something off the list and write the piece, and do background research, make sure that there's things that other people can take away from that piece, as opposed to me just typing out everything that's in my brain. But yeah, so like, I don't think I've been very lucky in that ideas always come to me very naturally, but I suppose like you can also take inspiration from the world around you, things in like popular culture, things that are topical in the news, in the media. It's an endless, possibilities are endless.
Yeah, and from what I think I heard you say there is that, so obviously there's ideas pop up from all types of different inspiration and different moments, and then you kind of just want, and I know that feeling, you just have to get it out there. But then you also said that you would have a slight thought for the sort of the reader in terms of, does it answer a question, or maybe not always a problem, but like just does it have value in some way for the reader, right?
Yeah, I just want people to like read my post and feel like they've taken something away from it. If they put the time and energy into like reading what I've written, I want them to come away feeling like, oh yeah, I feel like I understand that a bit better, or that's maybe changed the way I think about something. That's the goal, really.
Yeah, no, that all sounds, I know for me, car journeys were always, if I was in a car and just, so essentially not on the laptop or the phone as much, and not engaging in meetings like I do day to day for work, it's just that headspace. I mean, in actual fact, it does lend itself over towards a sort of mindfulness and meditation, that when you allow your body and your brain to just be still, even for a couple of minutes, you end up getting more creativity and ideas.
Definitely. And conversely as well, I don't know if it's the same for you, but I sometimes feel like when I'm spending more time on social media, I actually feel a bit less creative, or I sometimes get overwhelmed, because there's such like the sheer number of people putting their ideas and opinions and thoughts out into the world. Sometimes it does become overwhelming, and I feel like I need to take a step back, and I always feel better for doing that. It can be difficult to pull yourself away from that world sometimes, but I do think in terms of both content creation and in terms of like your general well-being, I do think there's so much value in taking a step back sometimes as well.
I think from a strategy point of view, and maybe more when we work with businesses that have a product or service, and it's a very marketing thing. That there is a good amount to be publishing. You want to be regular, you want to be consistent, you want to have momentum, and that's the same if it's a more of a hobby blogger or even an influencer that starts to get paid from brands. Like there's a place for that, but I do find that the pressure of doing an amount can take, like you sort of said it already, it takes away even the fun a little bit, but it certainly takes away the creativity. So it is a balance that if you are a blogger, you have to be quite regular and persistent with it, but in the way that it's creative and adding value to people. So I mean, in terms of that value adding, how have you gone about understanding what people need? And I suppose on one level it's what you went through, so I might wonder if there's a lens you have of just writing for when you were in that place, but have you been able to sort of engage and learn from the community that read your blogs as you've gone along as well?
Definitely. I actually really like when people send me constructive feedback, and you kind of, as you go along, you get a sense of what resonates with people more than other things. And the thing I found, even though things do mostly stem from my own experiences, it's the blog posts that I'm always a little bit nervous to hit publish on that are the ones that resonate with people. So
that's interesting.
The ones like I've said something that I haven't. Well, I mean, you always want to try and say something that hasn't been said before. Like I wanted to try and talk about the issues that people don't necessarily talk about as much. And even though it scares the life out of me to press publish, those are always the ones that do the best because people feel like they've been seen or heard. So in that sense, and then like once you've had that initial reaction, and that's obviously the most amazing thing to see that it's resonated, it does kind of spur you on to think about more posts in that same area. Like, do I have the courage to talk about these things that no one's talking about? So that kind of
because there's an image around influencing and blogging that it's all selfies and beauty and all that, and I like that there's some fantastic disabled bloggers exactly like yourself that have things to offer in that space, but the stereotype, regardless of disability or not, is it's a bit vain and a bit self-gratuitous, all this kind of stuff, but I think when you can be honest about the down days and the struggles and the human side, it actually resonates with people even more. And there's almost this weird expectation to just always be happy and always be upbeat. I mean, I'm a very positive, upbeat person. I'm not going to change that because that's naturally me, but like it's been important over the years to show those struggles and down days because it adds more value, like we were saying before.
Definitely. And it's something I'm still actively working on getting the balance right with, to be honest, because I'm like you, I'm much more inclined to post about the really cool or exciting things that are happening. Like I like to document like things I'm working on or things that I've achieved, and you're such more like I find it much more enjoyable to post about that than the facts, I'm not having a very good day today, or I just want to give up and go back to bed, even though those days do happen regularly. Obviously they're less visible because you make the decision not to post them as much, but at the same time, like you say, there's value, and it comforts people to know that even these people who for whatever reason they see as, I don't like the word inspiring, but it is a word that
that word's been kind of killed in the disability world, and it's a shame because like we all need inspiration in life, but equally the reason it's killed is because people get inspired by the most not inspiring things that disabled people do, like being a nightclub. Oh, it's great to see you out, and it's like, well, why wouldn't I be out? So I mean, that word's got a bit of a bittersweet thing for me, because in the end I think if someone's inspired by my content, that's actually a job done in a way.
If it, like, the way I kind of see it is if what I've done motivates people to try and live their best life, then that's a big win in my eyes. That's the way I like to look at it.
It's the context of the word, isn't it?
Really.
So we've had a few bits I've flashed up, just sort of people saying hi and all the nice formalities. Good to see everyone joining, and thanks for joining as well. We've got a specific question I wanted to just bring up. So Chris says, do you find you get messages from older blogs that you have written?
Yeah, so in terms of like older content I put out, yeah, because people still, if it's a popular topic, people will Google it and the post will come up. So I do kind of still get people coming back to those blogs and leaving comments or messaging about them. And I think that's really nice, because again, it just goes to show that people proactively went looking for something that you'd put out there, and it resonated with them so much that they wanted to get in touch. So yeah, that's definitely something I find, and I think it's a sign that you're making useful content when that happens as well.
Yeah, I mean, maybe when you said about that framework of does it add value, it's also about longevity. So yeah, is this post you're going to hit publish going to help someone in 5 years with the same situation and condition? And that's another, I think not every post has to be like that, but as you say, there are certain things that are universal, and it's great to maybe have that filter when writing on these things as well. So so we've covered content creation and learning from the community. Like, how do you engage with your readers and followers? Like, have you ever gone offline? Have you ever done a virtual event? Like, just beyond the writing, have you ever done anything else?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of it, because the nature of my condition and the people who follow me who often have similar conditions, most of our interactions are online because people struggle to leave the house. So I always like talking to people over Twitter and Instagram in particular, but so many of my real life friends are people I've met through the disability blogging community. There are people who I absolutely adore. I'm sure you know a lot of them yourself. There's people like Chloe, Tia, Shona. So I've formed genuine real life friendships from blogging in this online world. It's generalized to real life, and they're some of my favorite people. But even on a more day-to-day basis, like I do dedicate time to replying to messages, questions, because I think if someone is taking the time to engage with you and show their support, which people are so kind and they do, I think they deserve a message back at least. Like, I do try and make a proactive effort to kind of chat and get to know people, and it's something that's really lovely to do.
I think because it's, as much as it's nice to create the content and share the story, it's that interaction and that community connection it's valuable to the community, but it actually, I found it gives me a lot more energy to just carry on, because it's that two-way interaction is really nice. One more thought about content creation. So the world has definitely gone more video centric, and I know that like some bloggers are trying to keep up with the latest trends and go to the latest new platform and all that sort of stuff. How do you just some thoughts really on that? I mean, I think for me it makes sense that if you love writing, why would you ever stop it? But have you sort of felt like you ought to do some more video type stuff, or do you feel quite clear on no, writing is what you want to do?
I think it's a case of getting the balance between both. So exactly as you say, I feel like writing is what I was meant to do. It's something that comes far more naturally to me than filming videos. Although I am working on the public speaking, I am getting better, which is a relief.
That takes practice. I used to get so nervous. It was unbelievable, and it's just practice makes perfect with that kind of thing.
That's good to know, because I've watched some of the stuff you do and it's amazing. So that's actually really, like, I'm glad that you've said that. I'm glad.
Like you want it to look effortless, but there's a lot gone into that to make it look effortless. It's just practice and overcoming the fears, but also just working out what stories and narratives people connect with and all that kind of stuff.
Definitely. And I suppose in a similar vein, like, I have turned to YouTube. I have started doing YouTube, but I don't put the same time and effort commitment into as I do to blogging. But like you say, it has got easier with time. And even though I still feel a bit awkward sitting in front of the camera and talking sometimes, I've found that I actually really love editing and uploading videos. So again, it's kind of enabled me to do something a little bit new, a little bit different. And in a way, sometimes these alternative platforms can be more accessible for different audiences. So if somebody with a condition like mine has brain fog and struggles to read a large body of text, it might be that video is more kind of accessible to them. So in that
podcast as well, right? I could imagine it. You mentioned about being in bed for periods of time. I mean, a podcast is even better than having to watch. I mean, you could have the video on and not look at it, I suppose. But like the audio thing is definitely an interesting one.
Definitely. So I think there's I do agree there's value in being in lots of different platforms, although naturally I think we always do have our favorites, and mine is blogging and Instagram.
Yeah.
I haven't don't know about you, I haven't transitioned to TikTok yet. I don't think I could do TikTok.
So I'm on there because of particularly with Purple Go, you know, brands are gonna go where there are big audiences, and there is a massive audience now on TikTok. I can't remember the stat, but they hit a very big landmark recently of number of downloads. And I think that, you know, I follow a guy called Gary Vaynerchuk quite a lot, that's an expert in this world, and you just have to look at it from, you want to be where the audiences are, whether it's your product you're selling, or like with us, it's often just been about education, awareness of having a disability. So from that perspective, it's good. But I have to say I've struggled with what content to make. And this Gary V guy suggests that you don't need to start twerking and doing all the dance challenges, that you basically just do what you do. Obviously with TikTok, it is video, so it wouldn't be something that you would write longer form articles on. But if you've made a video on YouTube or Instagram, stick it on TikTok, because basically, there will be people on the app that will be looking for things they're interested in. And it's not the typical, it's not only cat videos and dance challenges, and it's still about understanding the platform. So it's quite a lot of music. So you might think about what music you would put behind your video and what hashtags to use. So I think there's a bit of, and that's why I've been on that, just to kind of research it really. But yeah, I have a resistance to what to put on there. So, but I think another few months, few years, we're going to see more and more adults and older people going on there. If you think Facebook now is all ages, that happens on every platform over time. So yeah, I wouldn't dismiss TikTok, but I would be, it's a younger audience. So it would be, imagine going around schools and giving a talk to school kids, just make videos for that kind of audience, really.
That makes sense. Did you see, I'm not actually sure how this is played out, but did you see there were a few issues with content creators having videos taken down because they were using wheelchairs? Have you seen about that?
No, I didn't see that. Wow.
So it was one of the viral dances that people do, and there's been 2 different wheelchair users who, doing the same dance as everybody else, have had their video taken down time and time again. And people are starting to wonder if it's because whether it's because they're wheelchair users, which is obviously not acceptable in the slightest.
No, that's really bad.
I know, maybe we should get Purple Go on it.
Well, I know someone at TikTok, so I'm going to reach out afterwards and ask about that, because I thought you were going to say that like some wheelchair users did it and it was fine, and then some people that aren't wheelchair users used the wheelchair, and then that gets a bit of a grayer area. But if it was wheelchair users doing dances, that's awful if they took it down.
It really is. But like similar things have happened on loads of different platforms in the past, and it just goes to show how far we still have to go, I suppose.
Yeah, totally. There's a lot more to do. Okay, there's a couple of questions. Let's go to the audience again. I think someone on LinkedIn, and it was Lucy, the name was, had said, yes, Lucy was like, how long did it take to get engagement? Because Lucy's just started blogging. And I think we'll wrap it up into sort of double whammy, that Catherine's asking, how do you blog consistently with chronic illness? So I guess that's, how do you manage the creation, but also how long did it take to get more traction from readers?
I'm trying to cast my mind back. With Instagram, I'd say it took maybe, I mean, if you view it when you're first starting out, if you view it as a hobby and just really indulge in the process rather than being really fixated on the numbers, I think
you should always do that.
Yeah, like it's I don't always necessarily agree with people who think you should run your social media like a business, because I think it does mean that you lack a bit of authenticity.
Totally.
So I think it took I'd say it took like a year or two before it really started ramping up. And then I'd say it took me about a year after that before I started getting opportunities and paid work. I know with blogging, it took about 10 months before I started getting like requests from brands. It varies a lot. And again, when you take chronic illness into the equation, I know that can put a bit of a barrier on things sometimes. You do have to pace yourself, take things at a slower pace. But if you're reaching a similar kind of audience, you'll find that a lot of people understand and appreciate that. So in terms of blogging consistently, I would say, again, it kind of goes against like general advice, but I don't always think you have to stick to a rigorous schedule. I think the quality of the content is more important than uploading.
Yeah, it's worse to put something out because you feel obligated, but it's crap and no one really wants to read it anyway, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
How my day was today.
Right.
Yeah, no. So I think don't be too hard on yourself. Don't put too much on yourself. Health comes first, and just I know it can be so difficult to pace yourself again when you're in the middle of writing and you're really enjoying it. It is so hard to pull yourself away from it. But think about the bigger picture rather than the immediate days in front of you. Like it can be a longer process, but stick at it, do what you're comfortable with, and it will pay off.
Yeah, that's good advice, because I think that the amount of content that you publish and the amount of people reading are, you know, as you say, they're not necessarily pressured statistics or goals. Like, it's just publish what you want and the people that want to read it will come and read it. I think where the pressure can come is if someone has decided to rely on that for their livelihood, like to pay rent, then like that's where it's going to be pretty stressful, and you would need to do a lot more and have a lot more followers. But I think if you go into it to make money, it's going to be quite a hard roller coaster. But if you do it as you said, like a hobby and the passion, it could just be that it does end up in that place later on. But like it's too much to try and do that within a month or even a year. I mean, I've never really monetized off of my martinsibley.com blog and social channels, as in I don't have adverts or sponsored posts, but equally I've become known as an expert and an influencer, so I get paid to consult and speak and do now Purple Goat. So it definitely can become a job, but it's not the way people think, that you're going to just be sponsored posts all day every day. That can be quite ups and downs of the demand from brands as well, right?
Definitely. And you do have to kind of it can take a bit of time to think about what you really want from collaborations and sponsored posts, because the most important thing is to stay authentic. Like if you're just jumping at any opportunity to make money, which I know is so tempting,
people do need to live, right? Like that we're definitely dealing with. The other side is that disabled people have done a lot of voluntary thing. There's a whole charity sentiment. So like, first and foremost, disabled influencers should earn money, but it's like any influencer, regardless of disability, whether disabled or not, it's not a given that it happens quickly either.
That's exactly it. And it's such a delicate balance, because a lot of the time the people who I do work with have really good morals and like they're like social enterprises. So it's getting the balance right between making sure that what you're doing benefits them whilst also earning an income. Like it takes practice, but it's I think we do, like, people are being more transparent about it now, I've found, like talking about the financial side of blogging and social media. But like you say,
new industry, right? It's a very new industry.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And it'll be really interesting to see how it kind of plays out in the future, especially with Purple Goat and the things you're doing now. Like, I feel like it's to anybody who's watching this, if you've ever considered starting, I feel like now's a good time to start, because it's more and more saturated. I feel like more and more opportunities are going to start coming up, which I feel really positive about.
Yeah, well, so there are disabled bloggers, including me, that have struggled to get brands to even want to do stuff around disability. But with the Purple Goat initiative and other initiatives as well, businesses and brands are starting to wake up. So for Purple Goat and anyone else doing similar stuff, there's going to be a need for more disabled influencers. And when we've gone to do some campaigns, you know, that there are people with followings that class as influencers, but like, yeah, there's definitely a lot more room in the space for people. So yeah, I totally agree with your point there. Gavin was just saying around the inspirational word that, you know, for him, it's not banned and it should be used. And, you know, it's sort of not to lose the positive meaning of it because of past history elements. So very good point there, Gavin. I agree with you. And Rich is saying, do you think having to earn money from these platforms is a reflection on the lack of employment for people with health conditions? I mean, I don't know that disabled people in an abundance are looking to earn, like, they don't think that it's possible maybe to earn money from influence. And like you said, that it's a good time to enter the space now. But there's definitely obviously difficulties around general employment. But yeah, it'd be good to get your thoughts, Pippa, on all that, what Richard's asked.
I mean, especially with conditions, chronic illnesses like ME, the employment sector is an absolute minefield. It's something I've personally really struggled with, trying to find accessible employment opportunities when you have reasonable adjustments that you need, like things like flexible hours, being able to work from home. That was a real struggle for me, and it was a big part of the reason that I decided to go from employed to self-employed as I am now. Although, even though I am self-employed, one of the charities I work for is called Astrid, and that's actually an organisation who is matching talented disabled employees with inclusive employment opportunities.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Like, they're such a lovely, they're only a very small charity, but they're amazing, and I'm really proud to work for them. But like, the battle, there is so much disabled talent out there, and it makes me so mad sometimes that employers don't see just how much disabled people can offer to the workplace. And it's just getting the employers to see, like, that even though we may have health conditions and we may need reasonable adjustments, we have so many skills to offer, so much valuable experience to offer. And I do think there's a lot of work that still needs to happen in that area. And
a thought I just had is that if someone was to get into blogging, but not because they're looking for brand deals and that direct kind of influencer work, it's kind of like a window dressing of your, like a CV. So instead of a 1-2 page document that hardly anyone ever reads, and it just summarizes things that, you know, you could get off of a Google search now, a blog is like a real way of selling your personality and your skills and your experience as it's happening. Like, any employer will Google the person they're looking to hire. So I also think that social media is a great way, even if you're not looking to be as entrepreneurial and start your own business. Yeah, it's almost a way of passive networking, I suppose, because it's like you're putting yourself out there, and by doing that, what's to say people won't find your content and come to you? They might look at something you've written and think, wow, they are absolutely perfect for this project that I'm doing. Again, that's something that has happened to me. So I highly recommend, it's another, if you're kind of in that situation, I mean, I just sound like I'm selling blogging now, but I cannot recommend it enough. It's alive. It could change yours too. It's like you're a blogger or something. That's really strange. So, in terms of, we both touched upon COVID-19, but it'd be good to get a few thoughts, you know, personally, professionally, whatever your general thoughts are, how it's been for you.
It's probably the one time in my entire lifetime where I feel like I'm not disadvantaged because of my chronic illness, which is,
I didn't want to presume that, but I wondered that. Yeah.
So I was already so set up to work from home. My entire career has been built around the fact that I struggle to leave the house. So now that everyone else is in that situation, I felt like I didn't need to really adapt at all. I felt like day-to-day life just continued as normal. And that in turn has actually had, again, a positive effect on the number of opportunities that have come my way. I've had more work coming my way. And again, on the blogging side of things, I do wonder whether COVID-19 is going to have an effect on, like, traditional advertising, whether people are going to start relying on influencers and content creators more.
Yeah, they will.
Yeah, so it's like, it's a very, and obviously that's not to take away from the fact that this pandemic is awful and has caused so much despair to so many people. But yeah, I do hope it goes some way in showing that you can work from home and you can have a career and you can still perform your job to the best of your ability, even with adjustments like working from home. And I do hope that kind of maybe makes employers more open to employing disabled and chronically ill people in the future. I'd like to think that way.
Yeah, I mean, when I'm like winter time, I'm more at home and a bit wary of energy, and colds and flus impact me quite bad. So like there's a bit that vibe winter, but summer I'm very full of energy, and you've seen on my blog I do a lot of travels and I do a lot of speaking around the country, around the world. So like for me, part of the mission has been making sure that buildings and transport is more accessible. So there's that choice to be able to go where I want to go, when I want to go. I think like what you're saying from the perspective of chronic illness, there's like you can have all of the ramps and the training at train stations in the world, but when you're having a down day, a low energy day, there's only so many spoons just to get around the house, let alone to go off. So I think it's choice, and I think to have education at home, working from home, and leisure, like streaming national theatre as a random example, which you mentioned, you were quite into that as well, didn't you? That like that's awesome for so many people that were inverted commas disabled, from those elements of everyday life.
Exactly, yeah. It's and I've heard from again many people who follow me like have expressed that they have they have enjoyed this period of lockdown because for the first time they feel on more of a level playing field with everybody else. They can access the same sort of things. They have less FOMO, they have less fear of missing out.
Yeah.
And I do think when things do start to return to normal, I think we need to be aware that might be difficult for some people. Like we've got to make sure that things don't go back to the way they are. We've got to make sure that people have learned from this time how we can make it more inclusive.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But hopefully people have had almost an experience like what you and I have in different but similar ways, and maybe that in itself is going to have shifted the way people see things a bit. Well, let's hope anyway.
I hope so. Yeah.
Rob's just saying, I missed this conversation. Will it be on catch up later? Yeah, on all the platforms that we're streaming to live, it will be available after, so you can check back Rob and catch up on the amazing stuff we've already touched upon. I just wanted to mention that having found another, so as we said, TikTok, I found Twitch. Have you come across Twitch at all, Pippa?
I've heard of it. Is that the streaming one?
So it's streaming, but it's gaming. So it's it's both. So it's more around the gaming world. So like I went on a bit like Netflix. You say these are the kind of films and TV shows I normally like, and they start to get a user profile. This was what games, what sort of PlayStation and Xbox type games you're into. So like I just felt guilty since I was about 20 if I was on a game, because I was like, I'm grown up and I should be working. And then I realized that actually there's a lot of adults still do gaming, and it's like a massive community. So I'm debating, I'm not yet, but I'm debating getting back into like a bit of FIFA or something like that. But this is streaming to Twitch because it's another place where, as we said earlier, where there is a community and there's lots of attention and eyeballs from a marketing perspective. But for me, it's something I'm quite interested, more than doing dances on TikTok anyway.
Yeah, and then it's like a new audience, isn't it? It's a slightly different audience.
Exactly.
I wonder how disability kind of plays into the Twitch community as well. I might have to go and look at this now.
Yeah, and Gavin's actually just said something quite funny here. I'll bring it up about on Twitch. I have a comedian friend who plays horror games on Twitch. He is so scared. It's a must see.
That sounds like that kind of content. I'd enjoy that.
Yeah, totally. That's cool. So yeah, I mean, and it's such an interesting world because I think, as I said at the beginning, there's a stereotype about influencers and bloggers that's just so far away from the majority. And even when there are brand deals and brand partnerships, there's some really good ones. So it's back to that statistic I shared yesterday that 0.06% of adverts have disability, but 22% of the population has a disability. So like just to have people from different walks of life in your adverts, but then it's easier with Instagram and YouTube. It's not like just having the big production advert that goes out on Christmas. You can work with all sorts of different people in much smaller but targeted ways. So it is an exciting time, I think. But I mean, I really was winding up towards the end, Pippa. I suppose I was just keen to get what the future holds. Is quite a big, grand question. But like, have you got any sort of specific aims around your blogging? Like maybe it's numbers, or maybe it's some impact or change. But yeah, what do you want to be achieving from all this in 5 to 10 years, say?
Oh, that's a really good question. I'm less focused on the numbers, although it would be nice to get to 10,000 on Instagram one day. I'm about 300 away.
Yeah. I mean, in a way that the numbers is the journey to something bigger, isn't it? So if you think of impact, that's still a crucial part of making more impact, but not just for the sake of the numbers, you know?
Yeah, not just for the sake of them going up and up and up.
Yeah.
The big one for me actually happened earlier this year. So I really wanted to write a book. I wanted to be a published author. That happened January 2020. I wrote a book called University and Chronic Illness, a survival guide. In hindsight, well, knowing what we know now, 2020 was not the year to write a book about going to university.
Right.
But, yeah, I'm really pleased with the response that had. And I'd love to author more books in the future. That's something I really love to do.
Yeah, congratulations on that, because I've done one myself and it's not easy.
It's not easy. It very nearly killed me off, but it was worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think just I've just been open to opportunities that come through blogging. Writing is always going to be my passion, but I hope to do more stuff in the media one day, maybe. Work on my speaking is a big one.
Yeah.
So yeah, no concrete plans at the moment, but I've got hopes and dreams. Just have to keep working to get there.
Yeah, I think it's good to have some bigger dreamy vision, because it powers us forward. But at the same time, you know, life changes so fast, as we've seen with COVID-19. It's, you can't get hung up if they actually are there or not. Like, they generally, the big ones you really want, they happen. It might take longer, it might be a different route, that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think it's nice to have it, but not be like resting your happiness on it, is what I'm trying to say, really. It's to enjoy the process and not the outcome. And what was that? One thing I was going to say to you. In terms of the book, Gavin said you're 299 away from that landmark of 10,000. Is that right?
It's not maybe. It has shot up this week because of Emmy Awareness Week, so maybe.
Could be. Well, everyone watching, what's your handle?
Life of Pippa on Instagram.
On Instagram. So go to Life of Pippa on Instagram and give it a like, and we'll try and get you a bit up nearer to that 10,000 mark. And book-wise, where can people find your book?
So if you head to my blog, lifeofpippa.co.uk, you can purchase my book and also my charity book, which is called Dear Chronic Illness. You can find both of those on there, as well as all sorts of other shenanigans.
Cool. And can you do me a favour afterwards, Pippa? If you go on any of the platforms you're on and find this stream, and just put any links you want for people to be able to click through, because it's a bit easier for people to have it written down. So yeah, feel free to put the links on there afterwards, and yeah, we'll see, get a few more people with the book as well.
Thank you.
That was what I was going to ask. I remember now, was it with the speaking stuff? So what parts of it are you feeling a bit challenged or overawed by? Like, what do you feel like there's something you'd need to help you get more down the road on that?
I'm wondering if it's just practice, because in the past, I mean, the thing I love about writing is that I can go back and edit my words, whereas with speaking, it's out there, you can't get it back and word it better. So I think it's more learning how to talk naturally in front of the audience, as opposed to learning a script piece by piece. It's actually being able to come up with it on the spot, and it is getting better, but I do think it's getting over that kind of apprehension, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, well, to be honest with you, like, I know when you do a video on your own, like when I'm doing it, they're a bit more staged and it's harder to be as natural. But like the way we're chatting now, you know, this is public speaking. Like, you've made some really interesting and articulate points, and there's lots of people watching. So it's I know it's not the same as like looking at an audience of people in the room as well, but I think you're halfway there just by doing this kind of stuff anyway. One thing I would recommend is having a sort of your story where you can deliver it in like a minute as you did, but also where you can deliver it up to an hour, because if you get asked to do keynote talks, it's worth just starting to play around with, you know, how to expand on points and things like that. So that's just something you can start thinking about and start practicing. But you've probably got your you know, with the book you've done and the blogging, you've probably got a lot of those ideas quite straight in your head already, I would have thought. And the other thing is, don't imagine it being a 500 person audience straight away. Like, try and go to, maybe once things obviously lift, but go to little gatherings of local groups and just start doing it to small groups to build it up as well.
Definitely. Yeah, that's something, obviously not at the minute, but that's something I'd really love to do.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Not at the minute.
All in time.
Yeah, exactly. But as I said, like so yesterday I gave a talk to school kids, and it was called the Learn Lounge, and they've done it as like a careers advice platform. And, you know, for me, it comes back to I could have traveled a couple of hours, got up really early, been very tired as a result of that day to speak to, you know, 50, 100 people. And I love doing that a few times a year. But I reached, you know, hundreds, if not thousands, doing that. So there is something about kind of the webinars, like maybe rather than just waiting until the lockdown stops, you could look to do a bit of public speaking through those kind of platforms as well.
Yeah, definitely. I'd definitely be up for that. And like you say, like when you're dealing with limited energy, it makes such a difference not to have to put all the exertion into getting up ready, being around all this sensory kind of overload. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, just a few, you know, something I've been building up. I mean, eventually I did get an agent, and having an agent was really helpful for like what sort of things you can charge for. And I was so rubbish at selling myself to people with budget. They're like, we've not got any budget. I was like, okay, I'll do it for free. Whereas my agent would be like, no, you do have budget and you are going to pay. So, you know, but that comes later. I think get the experience and a few sort of case studies, if you like. But again, there might be an angle eventually for an agent as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I would love that in the future. Just got to keep chipping away. But yeah,
exactly. And with the blog, opportunities come up. You know, you get people get in touch. So we've just had a question around ME. So hi both, I'm really late to join. So sorry if this has already been asked. I have ME and want to start a blog and then maybe a vlog. Can you recommend any vlogs or blogs that contain good advice about starting up, content, do's and don'ts, promoting your blog and making a bit of income from it, please? I don't want to put affiliate links or brand promotion of anything I don't really believe in or like myself. Okay, I think we covered quite a lot of that. So I would say to Lottie, definitely watch the replay afterwards, because I think we covered quite a lot. But do you want to just give a couple of thoughts to Lottie while we're on, Pippa?
Yep, 2 resources came up straight away. So the first one is a website called the Bloglancer, and that's run by Jenna Farmer, who has a condition called IBD, and that's all about how she like evolved her blog to earn a living from it. It's about how she finds like sponsored posts, like how she works with brands, and like actual like tips and advice on like the more practical side of it. Self-promotion, but I have a few posts on that area myself. I have a blog post called Finding Accessible Work with a Chronic Illness. I'll try and link it somewhere. And then the last one is Natasha Littman on Instagram. Shares really valuable tips and advice for kind of like just dealing with the world of work when you have a fluctuating condition. So those are my recommendations, my go-to.
Awesome. Yeah, there you go, Lottie. The answers are there, packaged up nicely for you. So Chris says about speaking, don't be worried saying a lot when you were speaking, and imagine the audience is naked. Whether anyone has ever actually done that or not, but the point is very valid, that if you don't see the audience as judging you or a threat, a lot of the fear of public speaking goes away when you just see them as people that are eager to hear your story and they're friendly and, you know, what's the worst that could happen. I think that takes away a lot of the fear as well.
Definitely.
And Rich is saying, great chat, very bright future ahead. I totally agree, Pippa. I think you've got a lot of good stuff to come for you. And yeah, very interesting. And Lottie says, yeah, thanks with a heart. So cool. All right. Well, yeah, I think we're done. So is there anything else you want to add before we finish up?
No, not really. Just thank you for having me. It's been really good to chat. It's like, I love talking about this area. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, and if you know any other, I mean, you've mentioned a few people already, but, you know, it'd be great because I know that my network, when I started the Daily Sib, a bit like a lot of other things I've started, begins with wheelchair users, just because that's, you know, my condition. That's more the people I know. But I'm very keen to get, you know, different people from different disabilities and experiences. So yeah, do definitely, if you know other people, feel free to introduce them as well.
Absolutely, for sure.
All right. Well, good luck and keep us updated on everything.
Thank you so much. Definitely will.
All right. And everyone, thanks for watching another really great episode. I've so many other things going on with Purple Goat. I can't remember off the top of my head tomorrow's guest, but actually, let's keep it a surprise because that'll keep you on your toes anyway. But yeah, we've got more coming up tomorrow and Friday. And then, yeah, I'm booked up for the next couple of weeks. So it's been amazing to have so many people wanting to come on the show. So yeah, thanks for watching and thanks again, Pippa.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.